Halloween in TF2 is awesome. During the month of October, we get to enjoy what can only be described as concentrated chaos of a game, which makes casual play of the game so much more enjoyable. I, however, in a true spy main fashion, have been looking for a way to ruin Halloween fun for everyone, since we can't just have something nice around here. Hello, I'm John, and today I wanted to do a quick rundown of Halloween bugs that are in the game, as well as some intended mechanics and ideas that spy and sometimes other classes can exploit to gain an advantage in a fight, no matter how situational those things may be. As per usual, I have left the timestamps in the description, so feel free to skip around. Let's get to it. First, Halloween spells can't be cast if you're under effects of something that prevents weapon switching, such as the H.H.H. or Buffalo Sandwich. Also, you can knock enemy ghosts and spectators with some spells around. For example, the Bat Swarm can knock enemy ghosts around in the underworld, and the Ball of Lightning can affect spectators. Honestly, it's useless unless you know which ghost your friend is or where your invisible friend while spectating is, and you want to annoy them. Another kind of useless underworld glitch is that if you use the Ball of Lightning on an enemy player there, it will make them get the full effects of exiting the underworld, as well as spam the message that they escape the underworld for every time they get hit by the vortex. For some reason, this doesn't happen in Hell Tower, but there's that. If you dislike the spell Minify because of its third-person perspective, you can create a bind for the first-person command. Pressing it while minified lets you enter first-person even in casual service with SV cheats disabled. At last, skeleton enemies such as the Skeleton King can attack you through certain walls if you stand in their normal range, so watch out for it. Also, they can walk through some doors that close and open as the game progresses, so don't be surprised if you see them walk through some solid objects. Now for some class or weapon specific bugs. At first, Valve seems to dislike Demo Knight. For one, the Eyelander effect does not cloak with the Invisibility spell, which means if you use the Invisibility as a Demo Knight that has some heads, you are going to be visible to people that pay even the slightest attention to the map. Also, Eyelander or its reskins do not collect heads when under the Minify spell effect. The only way to get a head when minimized as a demo is to hit a spy that has the Deadringer pulled out. Another funny bug is that attacking as a pyro with a hot hand does not break your invisibility caused by the spell, which means for once pyro has a viable way of dealing with sentries. I never really knew that this was a glitch, but when you're using the invisibility spell with spy, your spell's decloak sound is the same as your current watch's sound, which means if you have the Deadringer equipped and you go in for a kill from full invisibility, you should expect people to react to you even more than usual. Funnily enough, you cannot pick spells up as a spy if your disguise doesn't have the spellbook equipped. At last, spells cannot be crit boosted, but they can be mini crit boosted. While it is not really a bug, I didn't have where else to put this bit of information, so here you are. Alright, that's all that I know about Halloween bugs, and since it's meant to be more of a spy video, let me share all the lesser known effects of spells as well as my tips for using them as a spy player. Let's begin with some straightforward ones. Invisibility is as simple as it gets. Upon use, it heals you for 40 health as well as grants you invisibility for 8 seconds. It pretty much removes the hard part of flanking the enemy unless you just poke their back after turning any corner, provided you don't walk into any stray rockets or other spells. If you think about it, it also removes the downsides of knives such as the Eternal Reward and Kunai if used well. Naturally, the invisibility spell can also be used for escaping situations, but I don't really recommend doing it unless you're in a pinch, especially because it doesn't trick everything. Another easy to understand spell is Overheal. It grants you, as well as your allies around you, a 1-second Uber, as well as it bumps up your health over 3 seconds. My personal favorite way to use it is as an overheal if I want to pumpkin jump somewhere and have no better way to heal myself. If not used for that purpose, I very much suggest saving it for a moment where you or your teammates need a heal to keep pushing or to escape to safety. Also, using the spell to heal your medics is a nice way to return the favor. One lesser known effect of the spell is that upon use it pushes enemies that are very close to you away from you, which means that using it mid-chain is not really recommended, especially if you struggle to close distance between you and the enemies. On the other hand, it means that if you happen to be near a cliff, for once you can just push enemies off of it as a spy. Since I mentioned pumpkin serves, I might as well cover pocket pumpkins, or pumpkin MIRV, which stands for Multiple Independently Targetable Reentry Vehicle. Yeah, I will stick to pocket pumpkins even if PP isn't a better acronym. This spell basically has two uses. The easy one is to just hit the enemy with the initial spell since it explodes as soon as you hit the enemy. If you miss the enemy, or in other words, hit the ground or a wall, it spawns multiple small pumpkin bombs that detonate only when hit. Now, the way that they work might be a bit confusing at the start, but basically the pumpkins explode if they get hit by the same color team. When hit by the enemy team, they just disappear doing no damage. Also, when exploded, they deal damage to the opposing team as well as the person who exploded them, but not their teammates, which means that you can pumpkin serve off of small pumpkins without hurting your team. Naturally, you could also play smart with the spell and block off doorways or objectives with these pumpkins, but where's the fun in that? A seemingly more straightforward spell would be Blast Jump. As a spy, it's a great tool to get to weird places, as well as to stay above an enemy before falling down to get the stab. However, it has more uses than that. If you cast the spell in rooms with a low ceiling, it can be used as a way to heal up if need be, since it heals for 25 health per jump. Also, it deals a small amount of damage and pushes enemies that are very close to you much further away. While the damage the spell deals is very small, you can use the jump to push people off of the ledges, which is always great fun. Another simple use for Blast Jump would be using it to extend your damage serves, as simple as. Shadow Leap is also almost as simple as it gets. You throw a projectile to teleport to another place. If you use it mid-surf or a jump, it resets your vertical as well as horizontal velocity, which means it will leave you stationary before you start falling down. For that reason, it's best used while on the ground. Even more so, since you usually have enough time to cast the spell and then get a stab before the projectile lands and teleports you. However, there are some tricks you can do with it. For one, you can hit players and teleport next to them, which also deals damage to the enemy you hit. This makes it theoretically possible to airshot enemies with the teleport spell, or at least hit enemies that are in high up places and even in the air, and stab them before you fall down. However, I'm definitely not looking for this kind of footage, so you can just use your imagination. Another idea to try is transferring your velocity when you teleport. I have mentioned that as you cast the spell, your velocity gets zeroed. However, if you were to build a lot of velocity with, let's say, a pumpkin serve after you cast the spell, but before you teleport, your velocity as well as your direction of the velocity would be transferred without a problem. In most cases, this is rather useless since the teleport spell itself is more precise if trying to climb stuff, but it still lets you do some funny jumps with it and get extra height from the spell, especially in cases where you miss your initial cast. Fireball, Swarm of Bats, and even Ball of Lightning have pretty much the same uses. They are most commonly thrown at enemies or choke points, but for Spy they work much better as a tool to change your enemy's position. You can do that by either launching your enemies up to go for an understab or pushing them off a cliff or into your team if you're behind your enemy. The choice is yours. Personally, I find that it works great as a substitute for Sap and Stab since you can just sap the sentry and throw the spell at the engineer, which ensures that they can't get to the sentry within the next few business days if aimed correctly. A funny note about these spells is that Fireball as well as the Swarm of Bats melt the Spicicle, so keep that in mind if you plan on using it. Now a quick mention for the rest of the uncommon spells. The only really fun and unique rare spell to use as a spy is Minify. It gives the player a speed boost, infinite mid-air jumps, as well as a faster attack speed. It basically makes you harder to see and to hit, which is just stupidly powerful. Combine that with the ability to heal after every kill with a kunai and you can be pretty much unstoppable, until you introduce a sentry into the equation. Another thing to know is that if you're touching the skybox or any other solid surface, most commonly a slope or some stairs, as the spell ends, you're likely to just die. The way I deal with this is that I always try to stay in the air while under the effects of the spell, unless I'm on some even ground chasing an unaware enemy, but even in that case, staying a little bit in the air doesn't hurt, unless there's some grass that you're trying to hide in or something like that. The rest of the spells, Summon Monoculus, Skeleton Horde, and Meteor Shower are just strong and easy to use. Basically, either throw them over a choke point or at the enemy spawn, or even a teleporter exit. Personally, I really like finding enemy snipers that are very much unaware of my existence and activate my spell on them, since I somehow find wasting a powerful spell unnecessarily on one person rather funny. Hey, even a spy main should be allowed a little bit of fun. Talking of fun, let's talk about Halloween bosses. Yeah, I'm kidding. Most of them stop being fun as soon as they spawn in. However, I tried finding ways of making them more fun as best as I could, since there are a few mechanics that I feel I must mention. To start with, the Skeleton King, as well as all the other skeletons and their reskins, are the simplest enemies to understand. Basically, they spawn, they chase people around until they get killed, and that's about it. The key thing to understand is that they only chase you to places that are accessible without jumping, which makes them very easy to avoid if you choose to do so. Basically, just jump on top of a roof or such. Alternatively, you can just walk away from them, since they move at the speed of a sniper, engineer and pyro, of 300 hammer units a second, and you are much faster as a spy, so they should never be a problem to you. On the other hand, since the skeletons are rather predictable with their attacks, you can use them to serve damage. For example, the Skeleton King's stomp attack is probably the best way to get serves in games where he spawns. His stomping attack is rather easy to trigger and to read, and is made especially easy to serve since the Skeleton King loses his collision when he performs it, which means you are given a lot of time to get close and crouch jump to get the serve. The best way to serve his stomp attack that I found is to kite the Skeleton King for a few seconds before approaching him. Apparently, if he has not hit anyone for a while, his stomping attack is always the first one to happen as soon as someone enters his melee range. Combine that with the fact that you usually want to kite the Skeleton King to a better serve location anyway, and you get yourself a great serve for just 100 damage. Alternatively, you can serve other versions of skeletons, but you can't get as much distance or height off of them, since they lack a proper stomp attack. One last thing to mention about skeletons is that there is one kind of a skeleton that fits none of this melee serve nonsense. These skeletons are from Spaniard. They literally have guns, so keep your distance from them if you can, especially as a spy. Another fun Halloween boss is MONOCULUS. First, his attacks can be quite easily served since it's literal rockets. However, that is not new. The thing that inspired me to look for more ideas with Halloween bosses and movement ideas in general was the fact that I started using the MONOCULUS' portal to stab enemies. When MONOCULUS teleports, he leaves a portal, and obviously you can go through it and just stand next to gaps with a cloak and dagger, making people die just because it's funny, but I suggest trying out to use the pull from the portal before you enter it to build velocity and either get above people with it or get to their side to stab them much faster. One way to do that is just jump at the portal as it is disappearing to get the pull but not the teleport to the underworld, but that is rather difficult to time. Since the portal stays for roughly 5 seconds, you would have to jump as it disappears, which has no clear indication, and varies in timing depending on your distance from the portal and so on. The easier way to build velocity with a portal is to jump towards it and then strafe sharply away from it. Since the portal only pulls players that are looking at it and are in the air, you can stop at the portal pulling you in by just looking away. Basically, start by jumping towards the portal, already looking at the side of it and not at the center, and then look away as you get closer to stop the pull. If you are under the portal directly, you can get some higher jumps by flicking your mouse away as you approach the portal, but this is harder to do and leaves you less options for landing a stab afterwards. The Headless Horseless Horseman, or just Horseman from now on, is relatively boring to fight as a spy. If you are interested in having an advantage over the other players, just wear the Saxton hat or the Pumpkin hat, which will make you not have any effects from the Horseman's boo attack. Other than that, just be aware that the Horseman does not trigger most weapons' secondary effects, such as recharging Cloak with the letter J, or healing with the Black Box, for example. If you feel comfortable with your movement as a spy, being it isn't that bad for you. Similar to the Skeleton King, you can serve Horseman's melee hits for 100 damage, which you can use either for serve stabs or to just escape the range of the Horseman and transfer the it status to someone that's closer to him. However, if you go for serves from the Horseman, one thing to watch out for is that you can get stuck inside of the Horseman's hitbox if you jump at him from an angle. But since his melee hits are easy to read and give decent height even when standing on the same ground level, it shouldn't be too much of a problem. Merasmus, however, is a problem. He is like the Grinch of Halloween. Even seeing the Ghost Fort contract sucks the happiness out of me completely. It is because not only does Merasmus spawn so often and makes the game literally unwinnable for half its duration, but it also invokes truce for all the duration that it's available for, which makes all movement ideas from Merasmus kind of useless. Of course you can get to funny places with low gravity or other spell effects that you might get, but you won't catch me doing anything other than sitting on this health pack hoping that some new player will accidentally fall to his death while I wait the truce out. Oh, also, a not so fun fact about Merasmus is that when he summons fake props, he can't even appear in one of them until a certain amount of them is destroyed, which makes trying to find him kind of meaningless since you can't even get a lucky guess at the start. To end it all, if Merasmus spawns after the end of the game, the server crashes. For those who are still around at the end of the video, if you're interested, I've created a Discord channel in which I discuss my video topics and take video suggestions. Link is in the description. Also, I am planning to stream more over on my Twitch, especially when it comes to fun challenges that I have planned for the future, and I would love to have you around. Thanks for watching and take care.